Do you suffer from painful, heavy periods, PMS, mood swings, or migraines? Are you tired of being told they are just normal parts of life? Or are you afraid your child's going to suffer these symptoms too? At Vividus, the full of life company, we take the pain, misery, and confusion out of those menstrual cycles and replace them with tools of empowerment and time management so you can be Vividus. Visit embracingflowpodcast.com for more information on transforming your cycles from ow to wow. Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.
Ever felt frustrated being told PMS, heavy bleeding, and cramping are just normal parts of life? You're not alone. I loathed my monthly cycle for decades. That all changed when I earned 3 health coaching certifications discovering something incredible. Your period is vital. It is an outward sign of your inner health, and it holds the key to unlocking your full potential. I've been there battling heavy, painful periods, and I turn them into cycles with minimal PMS and cramping. Today, I'm on a mission to share that information with you. Pour a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and grab your headphones as we embark on a candid and empowering journey of self-discovery. Together, we'll demystify menstrual cycles, explore cyclical living, delve into natural birth control, and guide parents through those crucial period talks with tweens and teens. It's time to break the taboo around menstruation and embrace the wisdom it holds. I'm your host, Heather Almendinger, and this is the Embracing Flow podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Embracing Flow. I'd like to introduce our guest today, an expert at embracing flow, Saril Vasquez. Thank you so much, Saril, for joining me today. How are you?
Amazing. And I feel honored to be part of the conversation today. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I have been looking forward to this conversation since we first met. Listeners, here is why. Saril is a triple certified functional practitioner that has the honor of coaching women on how to uncover their true root causes of hair loss and reverse hair loss naturally. Her students, quote, rewind the aging clock, unquote, feeling more confident about themselves by gaining control and clarity about what turns on and off their aging hair. Her message is, it's not just genetics. After a decade of service in traditional Western medicine and suffering from alopecia herself for that same length of time, she turned to ancient wisdom, heavenly guidance, and earthly remedies to help her reverse her own hair loss after medication, labs, and traditional medical practices rendered her hopeless. Using personalized nutrition, supplements, and lifestyle choices, her flagship course and coaching program, Bellicanics, helps her students become masters of their body mechanics to reveal their inner belle. I love it. And again, I am so happy to have you on Embracing Flow today.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. There is a lot to unpack because I know I've gotten questions. I've gotten complaints. They're like, what is going on? I don't understand. I brush my hair and I wash my hair and I have clumps of hair. I'm not old enough to go bald. I don't want to go bald. But before we go into all of that and what you do, I ask all of my guests if they're willing to share a story of one of their first cycles and about what age did they start cycling.
I was looking forward to talking about that because no one's ever asked me that before. And it's such an interesting question that I need to scope through all your episodes to listen to all the stories. I'm sure some of them are hilarious, but in my case, I was about 11 years old. And I remember it happened at school and my friends around me were all getting it.
Yep.
I was just wondering, when will it be my turn and how is it going to happen? Is it going to be this embarrassing moment that'll scar me for life? Right? Or, will it just be demure? And what it just happened when I was in the cafeteria. I felt like something I had never felt before came out of me, and I said, "I think this is it. I think I just got my period." You're just waiting for it, right? It's like the bullseye is on you, and one day you're gonna get hit. So I go to the bathroom and there we go. It was a lot. And it was there and it was red. And I said, okay. And then I got so excited about it. And I went and I told my friends, oh my God, I just got my period. And yeah, that's how it happened. It was an exciting moment in my life.
I think you're one of the first ones that actually said it was exciting and they were looking forward to it. Because there were some that knew that it was coming. They were one of the last ones, and it showed up, and they're like, "Oh, now what do I do?" I've had funny ones though. Uh, not too long ago, one of my guests, she shared one of her daughter because hers wasn't really that funny. Hers wasn't overly traumatic. It was just it showed up. She knew it was coming, but her daughter's story is priceless. I think it was episode 42. Um, just listeners, if you haven't heard that one, it was priceless. The what she texted her mom when her period started, it was hilarious. And for I think she was 11 or 12 years old, and to have that foresight and the humor about it, I mean, you hear about it on April Fool's Day, with girls sending stuff like that to their mothers, but this wasn't April Fool's. It was a real situation. And she's like, "Yeah, you need to come bring me clothes because, yeah, it's like a murder scene here."
That's
Um,
what, oh my gosh.
it's
That's what I was afraid of.
yeah, it was when she told the story, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I love it. I love the humor behind it." I use humor to get through some challenging situations. People look at me kind of funny, but I laugh at funerals because that's how I deal with the emotions that I'm dealing with.
Mm.
But and with periods, we've gotta have laughter because
Yeah.
there are some funny stinking stories.
I'll be honest, I've laughed at a funeral before. And
Eh
it's just like in this inappropriate moment where you know you're not supposed to, but you literally can't help it. And yeah, it must be something ingrained in our nervous system, just coping. You know, we gotta get through life sometimes, and it's not always the way that you want to get through it. We get through it, right?
I I make faces, I try and make other people laugh to try and help them because it's just there are so many it's sad, it's frustrating, especially some with the situation that I went through. I laughed, and because I laughed, other family members laughed, and it broke up the sadness, and we it
Yeah.
for me, it's we were rejoicing in the life, and we were celebrating the life of the person that we lost.
Mhm.
So for me, it is a little bit unusual for others to hear me laugh at funerals, but I'm celebrating the life that and the light that was there in that person.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you one thing. If more people started laughing through trauma, there'd be less stress related hair loss. Right?
That is true, and Patch Adams can prove it. Um, the movie with Patch Adams with Robin Williams, that was another great connection to laughter and how it helps heal us.
Mm.
How will you share your journey and how you got to where you're at, your Western medicine journey, your alopecia journey, and how all of that where you came up with your course,
Mhm.
your program. Do you take us on that journey?
Yeah, I would love to. So I have a history of working in the medical field. I started off with diagnostics and then I ventured into specialty pharmacies and I would call on different doctors' offices and, just try to bring, funnel patients into the facilities that I represented. And so during that process, I learned a lot about medicine, conventional medicine, to the point that I learned how to read labs. And that's where I got my foundational skill sets on reading labs. And I had to learn it even more so because at the age of 24, I ended up just losing massive amounts of hair. And I really could not put my finger around it until later on. But it took me on a 10-year journey with hair loss and thinning. And during this journey, at the beginning of it, I had a binder that was, and I'm dying to find it. I'm sure it's in my closet up there somewhere, but I dare say it was maybe 2.5 inches thick, 2 inches, whatever the case is, filled with labs. And it was so intense that I wrote a table of contents and I numbered the pages. And I just wanted to show the providers who were my friends, because I was calling on gastroenterologists and other dermatologists. I was calling on them. So they were my friends, and I would say, "Hey, can you help me? I brought you the cookies. It's time for you to help me." Okay. So, I realized that the opportunity for me to have a positive outlook on my future with my looks and my hair was very, very dim when it came to what they had available in their tool set, which was medication, which was injections, which was surgery. So I didn't do surgery, but I certainly did different types of medical procedures on my scalp, different injections and whatnot. I did different medications, spironolactone, estrogen, progesterone, different types of medications. And I had horrible side effects. When I took spironolactone, I couldn't even do my job because my breath was so uh, intolerable that people didn't want to speak with me. And I didn't even realize that, thank God for moms. My mom was the one who said, "What's going on with your breath?" And then I also had my period stopped. It was late. It was affected by that medication. And I also knew I wanted to have children, which I'm looking forward to doing that now at this point in my life. And I'm looking forward to working with you in that capacity as well. So I'm excited about that. But so I'm here on this journey, and I'm realizing I can't stay on this medication long term because it's really going to affect my possibility of protecting my natural rhythm of hormones and things of that nature. So the progesterone medication made me angry. Estrogen, I didn't really want to stay on because of the risk of breast cancer. So, it was just a recipe for let's find something else. And because of that, I went ahead and studied functional medicine, and I spent $75,000 in just 2 years, the last 2 years of my 10-year journey with alopecia, where how everyone, maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't, but everyone with alopecia, it seems like, says, "I've tried everything." And it's this feeling of, I've tried every hair supplement out there. I've tried every medication. I've tried all these things. Nothing's working. And so I had that moment where I thought that, until I went to a personal development event with Tony Robbins, and he was talking about how people sometimes get in their own way of getting the results that they want. And he'll ask them, "Well, why can't you achieve this result?" And he'll say that they will tell them, that they will tell him, "I've tried everything." And then he questioned them on that. And he said, "You really? You've tried everything?" And the minute he said that, I said, he's right. There's no way that I could have tried absolutely everything when it comes to my hair loss and thinning. What about the things that haven't been invented yet? I certainly haven't tried that. And I haven't tried everything in every combination at every timing. It's just impossible. So that's when I said, okay, I'm really going to try everything now. And I spent 75 grand that I didn't have, some of which I spent on my certifications. I'm a certified functional nutrition counselor, true cellular detox practitioner. I'm also a certified event interventionist, which includes neurolinguistic programming and just being able to rewire your brain as far as what you believe is possible, and what you're putting energy on. And so all of that was necessary to get me to where I am now, because after doing that and testing and trying, I mean, I spent $20,000 on hyperbaric oxygen therapy alone. And it was funny because I spent that, I got incredible results, but it wasn't sustainable. I couldn't just keep doing that. Although I would have loved to, because it's an incredible therapy. You're oxygenating yourself to a different capacity. It's amazing. And so I went to a practitioner, and she recommended a bottle that had oxygen. It was a liquid oxygen that I could drink. Started using that. That was $80. Found her supplier. Once I became certified, I was able to purchase it myself. So got it for $60. Then I went to another functional medicine practitioner that was a little bit more affordable. He sold me a different brand that worked just as well for $40. And then I found it on Amazon for $20. So, and my clients get the $20 solution, whereas I had to spend that. But nonetheless, as I went on this journey, and I got a very deep understanding of, well, how is the body supposed to work on a cellular level with the nervous system, the digestive system? How is the body supposed to work? And by understanding that, then it's possible for us to reverse engineer what do we need to do to recreate a version of yourself that can regrow healthy hair. And so what I discovered is that as long as we have blood that is rich in nutrients and oxygen, which sometimes that in and of itself is difficult because the diet isn't good, we're consistently inflamed, and that requires a lot of oxygen to be pulled for the inflammation process. Sometimes we have leaky gut, and foods that are supposed to be nutritious are inflammatory to us. Sometimes we don't have enough stomach acid. We're defecating undigested food. We're using the bathroom and we're seeing pieces that didn't get digested and things of that nature. So all of that are possible things. And that's just a few. There are many that interferes with your blood being rich in nutrients and oxygen. But besides that, we also need to make sure that it reaches the hair follicle. And so the question is, what could be stopping your hair follicle from reaching the blood? It could be how much blood is circulating there. And that could be affected by your stress hormones, which could be affected by your diet or your thoughts or even your environment. It could be if there's something growing under there. Maybe it's scar tissue, maybe it's calcification. And so there are different modalities to address all of that. There are different therapies and tools that I would use for the end result of going by each possible thing that is interfering the follicle getting blood that's rich in oxygen and nutrients. But once we're able to wrap our head around what all those things could be, then we get that result. And typically I have my clients do a very detailed intake form where I'm asking them everything from were they born vaginally or through a cesarean all the way to did they get that virus that was going around, just so I can get an idea of what were all the triggers, what were all of the events, markers in their history that could have set them up to genetically express hair loss and thinning. Because just because we have the gene for hair loss and thinning, which just means a cluster of genes that creates an environment where hair can't grow, that doesn't mean that we are destined or doomed to have that forever.
And I love that you're taking that whole body approach because our systems are so interlinked and it could be inflammation. And for those who aren't familiar with inflammation, would you be able to kind of describe what it is, what they might be experiencing if they have high inflammation within their system, within their
Right.
body?
So symptoms of inflammation are redness, swelling, pain. If you're experiencing that anywhere in your body, it could be inflammation. And sometimes we don't necessarily feel it in that way. For instance, if you have a leaky gut and you're consistently experiencing inflammation, that can express as food allergies. And sometimes we're not aware that we have a food allergy because we associate that with oh, that food made me bloated or that food made me thirsty. Well, sometimes that food can be an allergen to you. And what it did was it made you brain foggy. It made your brain foggy, or it made you produce mucus in the stool, or it caused pain on your shoulder. And you wouldn't know to make that correlation and match those two together and say, oh my gosh, because I ate this, this happened. And that is what I try to teach my clients to do, to be that detective of her own body, which I call a bell-canic. So a bell-canic is someone who's actually a mechanic of her own body, but mechanics have to be detectives because when the check engine light comes on, you got to figure out why that turned on, right? So you're becoming a mechanic of your own body so that you can reveal your inner bell, meaning that there is a version of you where you can feel your best, look your best, but to tap into that potential, you have to go after all those check engine lights.
I love that. I love the volcanic, but I love that
Okay.
term. I love how it's being used because yes, we do. It's our body talks to us and it's telling, "Hey, we've got a check engine light here going on." And that check engine light could have multiple different sources. It could be inflammation. It could be hormones that are out of alignment. It could be missing vital vitamins and minerals. And until you figure out what all the check engine lights are, you're just like going, okay, what's wrong with me? I tried everything. And they've tried, as you have, they may have tried medication. They may have tried this lifestyle change, not realizing that that's actually causing inflammation from a different cause. Um, so I love that you are bringing that, again, that whole body into it and giving your clients the ability to be self advocates of their own bodies, figuring it out, as being able to open those questions, giving them a safe space, saying, okay, what else could these check engine lights be? So that way they can be addressed because our bodies has that inflammation for a good reason, but when it's
Mhm,
chronic,
mhm.
it leads to a whole bunch of other issues. You mentioned leaky gut. Uh,
Yes.
what would be some of the symptoms that they might be experiencing if they have leaky gut?
Food allergies, I say, would be the biggest one because when you have leaky gut, it's not necessarily something where you feel a hole in your stomach and you say, "Oh my gosh, my gut is leaking." All right. It's really the person who presents as there are very few foods that I can eat without that make me feel not okay. You eat something, you feel tired. You eat something, you feel bloated. You eat something, you get stiffness in your shoulders. So you should be able to eat a diet that is free of inflammatory foods, which, in my opinion, and what I tell my clients to avoid are sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, and rice. And find out if there are any other foods besides that that could potentially be a problem. For instance, in my case, there was a time in my life where eggs were an issue, but I did more gut healing and now they're not an issue. And there was a time in my life where it happens sometimes, but not as often as it did before, where I had to make sure I soaked my nuts before I ate them because otherwise I would get digestive symptoms. So now, depending on the nut, that doesn't happen, but so I'm healing, I'm getting there. And so it's not always just the food. Sometimes it's also how the food is prepared, what you're combining the food with. But I would consider someone to have a clad iron stomach if they were able to eat foods and not feel symptomatic from it. There are 5 signs to a healthy gut. And so someone who has sufficient stomach acid, they're not bloated when they eat, they don't get acid reflux, they don't see undigested food in their stools. And those aren't the only things, but those are big giveaways. They also don't have they have a gut lining that is sealed properly, meaning they don't have that leakage in the gut in what is called its tight gap junctions. And so they're supposed to be permeable where certain things are allowed to come in and come out. But when it's leaky, it's spread out more. And so things that are not ready to be introduced to your body are leaked into your blood prematurely, and then your body looks at it as inflammatory in nature because it doesn't recognize it. But it actually, if it would have stayed in the colon a little bit longer, your body would have said, oh, I know what that is. And it wouldn't have used your immune system to tag it as an invader, which causes an inflammatory event because you use the process of inflammation to heal. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so besides those two things, also the gut microbiome should be populated in a way that's healthy, prebiotics, postbiotics, things of that nature. And you can get that from eating a variety of different foods, different colors, different textures, different fibers. And you also want to have bowel movements at least once a day, ideally every time you eat. And if you're drinking enough water, if you're eating enough fiber, that should help. But if you have a low grade consistent infection, which is number 5, then that is something else that needs to be addressed to have a healthy gut. And so what I don't just think about leaky gut, although it's a hot topic. Everybody's talking about it because we're realizing how important it is to work on uh, that aspect of gut healing. I do want to say, think about it all around. What we could be doing to create a healthy environment that isn't inflammatory in nature. And one of the things that I think about when I talk about inflammation and hormones is DHT. And I know that people always say, oh, DHT, if that's elevated, then you have androgenetic alopecia and you have, too many androgens, and that's what's causing your hair loss. If we lower the DHT, then we will get the hair better. And people notice that they're taking spironolactone, for instance. And though it may slow down the progression or stop the progression of it, it isn't necessarily regrowing in the hair that was miniaturized, is it? Right? Or people are finding they're taking estrogen, they're taking progesterone, but it's not necessarily doing anything to the thickness of their hair, the length of their hair, and things of that nature. And so there have been studies that indicate that DHT is actually a form of testosterone that cannot be broken down any further. So testosterone, through the process of what we call I can't even say it right now. Aromatization. Sorry.
Okay.
Aromatization, through that process, aromatase, it has the capacity of breaking that hormone down into a different hormone based on the needs of the body. But once the body produces DHT, it's testosterone. It can't be broken down into anything else. And testosterone has been clinically shown to be a inflammation modulator. So we have a person who's presenting with excess DHT, and science is thinking, let's lower the DHT so their hair grows, but nobody's asking why is there elevated DHT in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
If we address the inflammation, then that may resolve on its own. Plus, we may also create that environment where the scar tissue begins to break itself down and disappear because the inflammatory process has ended.
Yeah. I remember a podcast episode I had with a doctor who's very, very well versed in autoimmune diseases. And he said about how our hormones with progesterone, which is cortisol or cholesterol is broken down into reproductive hormones
Mhm.
through progesterone. It makes the cortisol, the progesterone, the testosterone, the estrogen. And he said, if there's a blockage with that progesterone, if our body's high in cortisol, high in stress, high inflammation, because inflammation increases the cortisol, it's all a wonderful, beautiful mess.
Mhm.
It will make that DHT, which is then your body thinks that you're a dude. And
Mm.
it starts growing hair in places that you don't want it. So
Right.
you lose the hair on your head, but you're growing a beard.
Mhm.
You've got hair growing down your legs that you aren't isn't supposed to be growing that thick, coarse hair on your legs. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff that goes into our this symphony of our body. And we talked about hormones and the estrogen and the progesterone and the inflammation, which isn't necessarily a hormone, but it impacts the hormones.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I'm looking at you and you have a gorgeous head of hair.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. How did you? I mean, I've seen individuals with alopecia. They're missing that gorgeous head of hair that you have. How did you go from having that to this gorgeous head of hair?
Oh, let me show you what I used to look like for whoever
I'd
is
love to.
this video. But my hair, it was
Yes.
see-through just the whole way through. And I also had, just it was just that widow's peak was gone. And I had the balding in the crown as well, just these patches of hair loss there with that widening gap. It even got worse than that. And so that's not the case anymore, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
No, that
but
is a beautiful,
yeah,
night. Oh my goodness.
yeah, it was
Huge
bad.
difference.
It was bad. And I had just broken up with my ex. I know you didn't ask me this question, but I had broken up with him 6 months before. The reason I broke up with him was because he cheated on me with a girl that was 10 years younger than me. So I was 33, she was 23, he was 38. Granted, she loved playing video games and so did he, and I didn't. Maybe that was part of the reason, but they deserve each other, right? Because they
Right.
knew what they were doing. And so I was out of that relationship, and 6 months later, I realized I had already had my practice where had my Facebook group. It's called Reversing Hair Loss Naturally. And I was already telling women there's a solution, but I got so depressed about that whole situation. I used food as comfort. I was eating the sugar and eating all these things. And thank God I didn't revert back to having an eating disorder, but I'd still used food as comfort, didn't even though I kept it in, right? And
Mhm.
so that did additional damage to my hair, and it got my hair really bad. And then I said, well, I have to do something drastic to fix my hair. So I went on an all fruit diet, and I thought, surely this is a solution because I've seen people online talking about being a fruitarian, and if that's what it takes, I will do it. And that made my hair even worse. And I said, that's when I really said I've tried everything, even though I hadn't spent that 75 grand yet, because I was running out of options here. And so the question that you asked me was, how did I get my hair to where I was, from where I was to where I am? I would say number one is reasons come first, results come later. And that's totally a Tony Robbins quote. But my reason for just going all the way to whatever it took was that I wasn't going to let that be my story. I wasn't going to let this guy that I thought I was going to marry cheat on me with this younger girl, and then I leave him and go look bald and have to wear wigs the rest of my life. I said, there is no way that is going to happen. So
Good for
that,
you.
that was part of it. And then after that, when I delved into the study of the human body, which granted was easier for me because of my experience in the medical field and having relationships with providers and uh, pharmacists, and not being blind to how that genre of medicine works, and labs and medication and all of those things. You learn something when you're working in proximity.
Mhm.
And so when I jumped into learning functional medicine, what I was realizing was my trigger, the reason my hair started falling out drastically in bushes, was because I got off of the birth control patch. I was on it, I believe, from the age of 19 to 24, and or 18 to 24, one of the two. And when I got to that age, I said to myself, I don't have a boyfriend right now. There's no need for me to wear this patch. It's not even classy. It doesn't even look good, So people don't need to know I'm on birth control. And I don't want to be on birth control. So I got it. I took it off. And it was as if my body said, whoa, whoa, whoa. We knew how to make progesterone, but we kind of forgot because you were giving it to us and we thought we were pregnant. Now you took it away. We kind of forgot how to make it. And estrogen said, well, I know what to do. And it just went crazy. And it started, I got so many symptoms of estrogen dominance. And the reason I throw up my hands and do the quote sign is because that is a condition that is recognized in functional medicine. But if you go to traditional allopathic medicine, they don't have that as a diagnosis code. It's not a thing. They don't really, unless things have changed. But when I was in the community and this was all happening to me, I realized that it wasn't a concern to them. What they were trying to address mostly was low estrogen, not estrogen dominance. And what it means is that even if you have low estrogen, you can have estrogen dominance, which is when you have a ratio of estrogen to progesterone that is off balance. And that creates a environment in your body that has a hard time detoxing. And there is this very negative, self-perpetuating loop, this loop of events that continues to happen that make the process almost unstoppable. And it is, we've been exposed to estrogens through our food, the cows, the pigs, they're injected with hormones to grow. We have hormones in the products that we're using, the makeup, the plastic in the water. And what's in there that is an estrogen is a cell. It's called the xenoestrogen because we're consuming these chemicals, and in our body we create what are called xenoestrogens. Now this xenoestrogen is 20 times bigger, let's say, than a regular estrogen cell. And so it can easily make you estrogen dominant because if it latches onto the cell receptor, you will have higher levels of active estrogen in your body. And then when that happens, which I can understand why it happened to me because my diet was horrible at the time too. I was in a full-blown eating disorder. But you could just imagine you're getting exposed to all of this, then you take away a patch that was helping you make progesterone. So, estrogen was strong in me, and here we go. Now my gut is creating an enzyme that's called beta glucuronidase that is releasing the estrogen metabolite that I'm trying to poop out back into my bloodstream. So my liver that works so hard to detox me from that estrogen molecule that also has 500 other things to do, now has to reprocess that estrogen molecule. And meanwhile, there's more beta glucuronidase and it's releasing. And on top of that, okay, we have the gallbladder creating liquid gold, which is bile. So bile is a substance that your body creates in your gallbladder, which is connected to your liver so that you can conjugate toxins to it and poop it out. And then it tries to take back the bile because it costs the body a lot of energy to make bile. So it wants to keep it. But nonetheless, it's supposed to latch on to toxicants and you're supposed to poop it out. And so when you have estrogen dominance, it actually makes your bile less fluid and more clumpy. And it makes it harder for that latching process to take place. So the process of which you detox has become increasingly difficult because the substance that was supposed to help you physically get it out is not being released as well. And when it does, the estrogen gets, released by beta glucuronidase. And so it can very quickly become a very negative thing where people start feeling lots of symptoms. And so symptoms of estrogen dominance, if anyone is wondering, are massive amounts of hair falling out, the bumps on the back of your arms or legs, cysts on your ovaries, fibroids in your uterus, stomach belly fat, lumps in your breasts. So there are different symptoms of estrogen dominance that you want to be aware of. And estrogen dominance can be known to cause cancer. So that lump in your breast could be cancer because estrogen dominance is some of the breast cancers are caused by lots of estrogen. And we have different types of estrogen. We have the type of estrogen that helps you age gracefully. And then we have the types of estrogen that cause cancer. And so the one that is cancer causing, the reason it causes cancer is because it has the capacity to multiply things. It proliferates, it rapidly multiplies things. And because it has that capacity, if you have a fungal overgrowth like candida overgrowth in your stomach and you have estrogen dominance, that's going to multiply. And that can make your gut more leaky because candida has these little, it's like tentacles, that can poke little holes in your stomach. So that could be the cause of leaky gut. And it's just all of these things together. And so when I'm looking at someone that has hair loss and thinning, absolutely, I want to try to help their hormones be harmonized, is what I say. But we don't do that with, you don't have enough estrogen, let's give you estrogen. No, you don't have this, because we can't play target practice. So what we're doing is, how well is the body detoxing? Is there any inflammation? Are there any allergens that are consistent? And these are the things that we're looking at in great detail when we're trying to get the hair to stop falling out in the masses.
Yep. And yes, estrogen is a growth hormone. It's impact menstrual cycles, long menstrual cycles, heavy menstrual cycles, painful menstrual cycles, all are connected back to estrogen dominance. So yes, it's the doctor that I referenced earlier in a prior episode that he works with autoimmune disease said 80% of those that are diagnosed with an autoimmune disease are women, and it's majority of estrogen dominance is the root cause of those autoimmune diseases. So that is how proliferated estrogen. It is a big issue that isn't really talked about.
Yeah.
And it's causing a lot of havoc. It obviously it impacted your hair. And there's a drastic difference between the pictures that you showed us, and the way you look right now. And I know that is your natural hair. So, yeah,
it is.
It's natural hair. It's not a wig. It's a natural hair. So when clients come to you and they're like, all right, I'm at my wit's end. I'm about ready to pull the remaining hair that I have out. Where do you start? What are some of the steps that you go through when somebody says, all right, I've been through everything else. You're now turned into Tony Robbins, and they're like, I've tried everything. And you're like, okay. We know that there are other options potentially for you. Where do they start? What do you give them first?
That root cause resolution roadmap call that I think I referenced before, I'm not sure, but yes, I did, where I'm asking them if they've had a birth through a cesarean or vaginal birth, all the way to did they get that virus that was coming around? Why? Because I really need to understand the history, what triggered it. I have a trigger, but I had a client that she started losing her hair about 20 years ago, and she's in her 60s. And she says, I have no idea what happened, why my hair started thinning. And so she said it was falling out a lot in the beginning, but now it hasn't been falling out as much. It's just I have that widening part, just that thinness in my crown. And at first, I couldn't put my finger on it. I said, man, I got to figure this out. Just like what happened? And I knew there was probably information she was missing. So I did ask her, what happened 20 years ago? Were there any changes? Did you move? Was there a death in the family? Did you get a new job? I'm thinking stress-related events, or I'm thinking, did you change your diet? And she said, actually, yes. I became a vegan or vegetarian or something. I said, oh. And did you have a lot of fruit at this time? Actually, yes. I did have a ton of fruit. I said, oh. And I said, well, That's when my hair was at my worst, when I was a fruitarian for like a month. I couldn't keep it up because it was horrible what was happening to my scalp. And so that triggered this progressive pattern where there was thinning and balding that spread because she started creating scar tissue. And then there was this fungal overgrowth, it seems, that she had, that she was hosting on her scalp. And when there'd be itching, even though she washed her hair and, different things of that nature, and the body would just create more scar tissue from where it left off to protect her scalp. And so it's an incredible genetic gift that her body is using that to protect her health, but it has the unfortunate side effect of thinning. And so the quest there would be, have we stopped that need for the body to create more scar tissue? Have we introduced different remedies to break down the scar tissue? And how do we create that life for her? That life where she's aware what makes it worse, where she's aware what she can do to make it better. And at the very least, she knows how to maintain her results, right? So that is what we're building. And then I had another client she said, I have no idea why my hair started falling out. It was fine like until 4 years ago. So I'm doing her intake and I'm trying to figure this out. I'm like, she has to be leaving something out. What is it? And the triggering event for her was the jab. She got the jab, and after that, virus was going around, and then hair just massively started falling out. She also had mold in her home. She had other things. She had gotten Lyme disease earlier in life, which made her take a ton of antibiotics. So there were things throughout her history that were making her more susceptible to this gene turning on. And so it's the same thing in her case. It's like, okay, her hair is a little see-through right now. How are we going to fix it? We have to break down the scar tissue. We have to heal, repopulate the gut microbiome. And so there's very specific things that I'm looking at, trying to recreate a version of someone that can regrow healthy hair. But that's essentially how I start. And then when we have that information, I create a plan with them as far as supplements are concerned that are very specific to their symptoms and their needs. I'm looking at what are the different symptoms that they have, and what does that say about the systems function, the digestive system, the endocrine system, the nervous system. Usually the symptoms, there'll be little clusters that show me, oh, she needs support with the circulatory system. She needs support with this system. And so I have the toolkit that I love to use with my clients as far as what to do to support different body systems based on their symptoms. And then I also work with them on their diet, and we remove sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, and rice. And I introduce to them the foods that could potentially help them regrow their hair. The cruciferous vegetables being one of the most valuable because it helps your liver detox hormones through the appropriate pathways. And then I give them a list of appropriate substitutions. So there's pasta made out of lentils. There's bread made out of nuts and seeds that doesn't have gluten in it. And so they don't feel deprived, and they're focusing on what they can eat versus what they can't eat. And typically I have everyone working as a group because it's not just one-on-one coaching, it's group coaching. So it's amazing to be in a community where you're seeing pictures of other girls getting the result. Instead of you thinking, I don't think this is going to work for me, you start to believe, what am I next?
Yeah.
This might work for me too, because and then it's not bull crap because they're all in that community together, and we're sharing things in real time, and I'm teaching them. Right now I'm going to run a challenge next week. It's a 21-day challenge where as a community, we're all abstaining from those foods for 21 days. I started ahead. I'm doing it for 40 days and I'm halfway through. So I'm happy I'm almost done. But it's a good way to become very hypersensitive, because through that, my 40-day fast, which I encourage my patients and I do myself to also make it spiritual. So besides I fast, and I also make it for God, and I, do a spiritual routine around that with prayer and whatnot and devotionals. And that's where we see real miracles happen. But nonetheless, some of my clients have other practices, they meditate or whatever the case is. But I do like to share with them what I'm seeing. So through my experience, I noticed that I can't have too much of the cassava substitutes. And if I do, let's say I have cassava pretzels, it's a pretzel, but instead of being made out of wheat, it's made out of cassava. I need to have it with almond butter, and I can't have too much of it because of the whole way that my body will break down cassava into sugar. And do I have enough fat to offset how quickly my blood sugar is elevating? Because that can lead to more scar tissue. So I'm noticing that. I'm noticing I can have sweet plantains, but I can't have too many. So it's you start to really learn your body. You start realizing these different nuances, tips, tricks.
Yep.
You get to we really focus on how to listen to your body and what your body's trying to tell you. So we do that. And then we have this whole emotional and mental rewiring process to make sure that they believe this is going to happen. And then I teach them a damage protocol, which means when you go back to eating these foods, because I'm not saying you can never eat sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, or rice again, though that would be great if you didn't. But when you go back to eating these foods, there's a damage protocol that I apply, which helps you be prepared for that inflammatory event. And so you have the resources in your body to deal with it so you can be more resilient like you were when you were in high school. When you can eat whatever you want and you didn't get all the consequences, it's because you had resources that have been depleted. And so I walk them through that process so then they can go ahead and live life without me now because they understand what their triggers were, what tools they have to make it better, and how to maintain their results.
That sounds like a really intense but empowering program that
Mm,
from start to finish it's you're walking in and yeah, you've got to remember, oh, I had this and oh, I had that and yes, I did this medication or I did that medication, seeing kind of where everything started and how it's built over the years. And you can say, you can very easily go back and you can, those that are getting frustrated and say, hey, this started 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's not gonna, it's gonna take a few months to start seeing results. This isn't, so you've lived with it for how long? And it's gotten, this is where it is now because of that, of being ignored for how long? It's going to take a little bit, but you will see results because this is what we're addressing. To walking out after working with you, having those steps, as well as what to do when some of these symptoms come back or if they experience symptoms. So you've got a very, very beautiful, well-rounded program. You
thank
really
you.
do. You're welcome. I
Thank you.
love it. It's an empowering program.
It is because hair loss is so hopeless. The one thing that people typically think when they see someone with hair loss and thinning is, oh, it's so sad that her hair is like that and it's only going to get worse.
Oh, she's
Right?
such a beautiful person, or he is such a handsome man. It's a shame they have no hair. Why don't they
Right.
get a toupee? Why don't they get a wig? And there's a lot of stigma around that. There's a lot of work around those alternatives. And we just want to have our own hair back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's for a woman, it is your crowning glory. It's just means so much to your self-esteem.
Hmm.
I remember sitting at a table with my husband and some friends that were all Lithuanian because he's Lithuanian and it was a Lithuanian experience with Lithuanian food and all these other things. And there was this one girl at the table and she looked like she was having the best time and she was so happy. And there's a part of me that says, I bet you she feels so happy and confident because she has such a thick head of hair. I feel like you walk around differently when your hair is thicker and beautiful and you feel happy with your hair. It really is your pride
Yeah.
and joy.
Yeah.
Right?
It defines you. It's what people see. It defines the face. It defines it shows off different features of you. It's sometimes the first thing people see.
Right. Yeah, my
And
niece, who's only 5 years old, got her hair done where they made it from curly to straight, and I remember I was something I was moving her around or something, and she's like, "My hair, you're gonna mess up my hair." And I was thinking, wow, she's so young and she's already feeling this attachment to her hair.
Yeah. It's an interesting how it is so important to us because it does in ways define us.
Mhm.
And when we do have the genetics that naturally we aren't able to regrow, that we have to go get a wig, then it's all right, well, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? Who do I work with? Who can I trust to take me in the right direction? Which
Yeah.
is another level of stress that most of us prefer not to go through.
Right. Well, if anyone is watching this and they're wondering, how do I know that my hair loss type is reversible? Is there hope for me? Because everyone that has hair loss and thinking thinning is always wanting to know, is mine curable? What's my possible prognosis? But they go online and they start researching and it says there's no hope. This one's not curable. And it's gut wrenching. And you're thinking, do I want to believe this? Or do I want to keep searching? Maybe something has changed. And so I have a quiz on my website. If you go to Belcanics, which is BELLECHANICS.com/quiz. Or once you go there, whether you go to read the blog or see the different things that I offer, it'll just pop up as a pop up anyway. But that quiz gives you a good idea of what your opportunities are as far as whether or not you can regrow your hair naturally, because there aren't that many cases that I've seen where it hasn't been possible.
That is that puts a lot of hope back into a lot of people, including me, because I know just recently, just brushing my hair, washing my hair, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here?
Your hair looks gorgeous.
I have very thin hair, but a lot of it. So it's I'll brush it and I'll just have clumps of it sometimes. And I'm like, all right, I am at the end of my cycle. My progesterone's low, my estrogen's starting to go low. All right, this is kind of part of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's understanding where I am in the cycle and that there are times in a menstrual cycle that hair comes out and other times it's not going to be as much.
Right.
So it's I know where I'm at. I know with me a little bit of age and going through this transition into being a wise woman with perimenopause into menopause, my hair changes. With pregnancy, my hair changed with both my pregnancies.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
No, it's
it's
interesting. Yeah, that's the truth and the evidence of hormones having a role in it for sure. And I always tell my clients when they're on their period, expect more hair fall. And I have this theory, and it's just a theory, but one day I want to do clinical trials around this. And it's just the idea that hair is made of organic matter. So if anyone ever does a hair mineral analysis test, there are going to be heavy metals present. What type of heavy metal depends on your environment. Could be lead, could be mercury, whatever the case is, arsenic. And so the reason that your hair has that is because as it's being created, your body is pulling whatever's in your body into the hair. And so these times where we have our cycle, we're excreting, we're leaking blood. And that is in a way a detoxification method because whatever comes out of your body, whether it be mucus, whether it be a cough, whether it be uh you're pooping, peeing, you're sweating, there are toxicants and toxins coming out of that. And once it's physically out of your body, things are coming out. And so that's the same with your menstrual cycle, but it's also the same with your hair. And so I'll see clients presenting with telogen effluvium or a circumstance where they're having a lot of hair fall out in response to an event or something that happened, something stressful, whatever the case is. Like earlier this year, my father almost died. He caught pneumonia when he got sick at my wedding. And so I went to move heaven and earth to figure out what I could do to help him. And there was a lot of stress. And so I did eat ways I shouldn't have been eating. And I also was stressed. And so I lost more hair than normal. And it's almost as if your body says, well, she has a lot of heavy metal in her hair and we need to heal. Just dump out a bunch of hair.
yep.
And so that's my hypothesis, that the body uses hair falling out a massive amount of. I remember one time I did surgery and they put me under anesthesia. And a few days after that, I lost massive amounts of hair for a couple of days. When I found out I had an allergy to dust and I had an exposure to it, massive amounts of hair for a couple of days. And so that is one way for you to realize if you have an allergen, if there was some kind of an event, if there was a bout of shedding and it lasted a couple of days and then it ended, what were you exposed to before that could have triggered that? That's something to make note of. But my theory is that the body doesn't make any mistakes and it's purposely ejecting all of that hair and making it fall out so you can grow new hair, which is going to pull more lead, mercury, arsenic, whatever, out of your blood and into the hair. And so it's like almost like a detoxification process.
Yep. And it's obviously, I mean, it's growing nice because it's a nice length and there's a lot of it. So
Mhm.
I'm good. I'm like, all right, it's just a phase. It's just a phase. Where can individuals find more about you, more about your program? I know you gave the website. Are you on any social media sites? Uh, where can where can they look you up and see your journey and just look to see if they feel comfortable really working with you?
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to help anyone that wants to try this method with me because we really focus on the diet, personalized nutrition, and lifestyle practices to get the body to a place where it can regrow healthy hair. And so with that being said, I'm on YouTube. I have a couple videos up of testimonials, but I've done several podcast interviews that are up there. So if people look for me on YouTube, they should see some of my other interviews. But I have my own Facebook group, which is called Reversing Hair Loss Naturally. And it's a very active community. They're posting there pretty much every day. And once a week, I answer community questions. Every Thursday, I either get on a live or I start making reels and posts, and I just answer all the questions that were asked on Wednesday for Why Wednesday. And I would say those are the two main ways to learn more about me besides my website, which is belcanics.com, where I have a blog, I have testimonials and the quiz and different offers and things of that nature.
I love it. Before we go, do you have any wise words of wisdom to take with us?
Yes, yes. I love when people ask me this question because it's the only time I get to talk about this. But I wanted to point out that though people may not be aware, without question, when you fear something, what you fear, if you continue to fear it, if you continue to focus on it, if it becomes something that you're terrified about, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And there's so many different examples in my life where I could think that, but let's just talk about the hair one. If my fear was, oh my gosh, I'm going to wear wigs for the rest of my life, and there's no way that I can fix this, then whenever I tried anything, in the back of my mind, I would not really believe it's going to work. So I wouldn't really give it my all because I've already trained myself to believe that I'm going to be wearing wigs. And if I did that, it would be for self-preservation, for wanting to not be disappointed. But in that process of avoiding feeling disappointed, which is another fear, you end up actually being disappointed because you just live in the disappointment of not getting your hair back. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I would have, one, ended up feeling disappointed for the rest of my life. And number two, I would have ended up wearing wigs, which is what I feared. But when people see me show all these different pictures of me with my hair loss at my worst, they never stop and ask, why does she have so many pictures? Typically, when people have hair loss and thinning, they're not trying to take all of these pictures. It's not like I worked with a practitioner. I had to become one, you see? And so it was because I had so much fear, and not fear, faith, sorry. I had so much faith that I was going to figure this out or I was going to die trying. And what prompted my whole creating the Facebook group was when my dad got prostate cancer. I put him on some herbs, and his PSA, which is an indicator for inflammation of the prostate, dropped drastically in 1 month. And so I said, there has to be something to this. My goodness. And then I tried it on my hair and I said, wow, my hair is like getting better. So I think this is a solution. But at that point, I didn't know as much as I know now. And then my hair got super worse to the point where I had to potentially wear wigs. And that's when I really figured out everything else that I needed to know, like breaking down scar tissue and things of that nature. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if I didn't have the faith that I was going to regrow my hair, I would have lived in that fear and it never would have happened. And so part of me having the faith was taking all these pictures, because I said, I have to document this, because people are not going to believe me if I don't have the pictures. And so that is what I tell my clients to do. Take the pictures, start taking pictures of how much hair you lost in the shower. Let's start tracking it. And then once they start seeing that decline, they said, oh my gosh, and I know that there's a certain amount that you lose when you're having your period, but my clients have a lot of hair loss, and so they'll see, even in the days where they don't have their period, it's better, because all around, just because all the different things that we're addressing. But nonetheless, that's my tip of advice for all areas of your life. What you fear becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you fear it, it's going to happen. So you might as well give yourself a chance, and don't focus on that, and start looking for evidence that you have hope and you're going to get out of it. And that's the only way that you can push forward, because reasons come first, results come second.
I love it. Thank you so much. What amazing words of wisdom to end on. I appreciate you, Sarah, for taking us on this enlightening journey into hair loss and hair regrowth. The ability for us to do this. I like I said at the beginning, I looked forward to this recording and the release of this podcast, and I'm I just really enjoyed having you on Embracing Flow.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here.
All of the links mentioned in today's episode can be found in the show notes. Thank you so much, listeners, for spending your time with us today. If you found a nugget of wisdom or a moment of empowerment, our mission is accomplished. Do you know someone who could benefit from this information? Please share Embracing Flow with them. Until next time, my friends, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Embracing Flow. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, submit a rating and review, and share it with your friends. Visit my website to receive your free PDF on 4 ways to decrease PMS. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, love hard, laugh often, and as always, be vividous.
Information shared on the Embracing Flow podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice.